Welcome to another episode of the Prep Coach podcast. How was your Easter breaks over the last weekend? What did you end up doing, MG? Did you go away?
I did. We went down to the beach, down at Inverloch. Weather was lovely. Talia had a ball. Got some awesome photos to show you guys.
Oh, yeah?
Just like her having literally the time of her life.
That's the best.
She's fearless on the beach. She loves it. She slept pretty well too, which is a first, but as soon as we got back, struck us to old habits. But
It started again.
that was awesome, man. It was just needed, to be honest, with what we're about to embark on, being that it's not really any breaks from now onwards for quite a while. So timing was really, really good.
You've pretty much got back-to-back weekends now until the season's done. Yeah, traveling everywhere, except for this weekend where it's at home state. But what did you do on the weekend?
Not much, man. I pretty much, I don't even know if it was ages ago. Jen and the kids went down to the beach house on Friday, and so I had to, for the first time in a long time, I had to run some classes here on a Saturday.
Oh, really?
So my staff were away.
Oh, wow.
They were either interstate or he was down the beach as well. So it was actually kind of cool for a bit of a change, and it was a full house, funnily enough. But that was what I did in the morning, and then I actually went out to Brunswick to Benny Lustig's new gym, which was cool.
Oh, yeah.
So he and I caught up on Saturday Arvo. So he wanted to show me the new digs, and then we ended up training for a couple of hours, and then came home and chilled out. And Sunday Easter egg hunt with the kids, which was fun, man. But other than that, it was kind of nice to just have a little bit of reprieve after the Gold Coast, and then knowing what's coming up. I think it was needed. What about you? What'd you do?
Pretty much the same, just family on Saturday and Sunday. Try to do zero work, not answering any messages or doing anything at all, because knew come into Monday was going to be a big check-in day, and straight back into it. And then obviously this week we've got Melbourne, and then the following week we've got Adelaide, and then actually after Adelaide, so the Saturday is Adelaide. On the Sunday, I'm going to Sydney for a workshop. You guys are going to Perth for a workshop. So basically we land, and then the next day we go back out again. So it's going to be a big weekend the following weekend.
I might just sleep at the lounge.
Yeah. And then we've got to go back to Perth the following weekend for the actual show.
There's less than 12 hours difference between when we land. I think it's like there's a 9-hour window. So we'll literally go straight home, sleep till about probably 4, because we're on an early flight to WA too. So
there you go. And then after that is obviously Perth is the following weekend. Then Tassie, then Nationals, and then done. And it's pretty much a month break that we have. And then we've got the retreat, 1st of July.
Yeah.
We come back, and it's the first winter show. Only 2 weekends in a row, and then a week break, and then the Nationals for the winter. And then the next weekend I'm off. I go to Europe. So
do you know what's funny is because you're doing that from the middle year, from our Season A Nationals, which finishes on the Saturday night. I'm flying back. That last flight back that night to get on a flight the next morning.
That's right.
Because I'm going to Europe as well.
Yeah.
Heading over to Greece and the UK. And then I'm meeting you guys in Bali because I'll be coming from Singapore.
From Singapore. Jesus.
Yeah.
So so only the month of June we actually have downtime. Like you'll be in the UK, but it's literally downtime, no shows or anything like that going on.
Yeah.
And then basically July 1, we're back into it. Until, when you think about it, all the way through until the end of Season C, which is the end of October. Bali is our last show, and potentially going to the US, right?
And with those workshops for when we get back, I was saying to Jen, this is the last weekend that I'm not on an aeroplane until I think the second last week of November. Because after Bali, because I got to go to the US.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's a lot of travel.
This year is a little bit of a different year compared to potentially what next year will be. Like obviously it's the first year we're running the winter, the mid-year, but also you're going to Europe, I'm going to Europe. We've got
I'm going twice.
You got twice? Yeah, correct. And obviously we've got the retreat there too in the middle of the year. So hopefully next year is maybe a little bit less travel because there's 2 Euro trips that we're not going to be doing, but it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's going to be a big
year. Super excited for the Melbourne show this weekend. First time we've ever been at that venue in Dandenong at the Drum. Obviously, only you and I have actually checked it out. I don't think the other boys have seen it yet.
No, I haven't.
It's very similar to Clock Tower, where we had it in Mini Ponds. But it's bigger. It's bigger. It's definitely bigger. And there's more rooms backstage.
It's huge.
Multiple levels, different rooms. It's a really, really good facility. It's right next to the Dandenong Plaza. There's a Quest there, so a lot of athletes are staying there that are traveling. There's plenty of parking at the plaza. You can go there. There's gyms close by. It's a great spot to have a show. So we're super excited about that. Obviously, Friday is athlete check-in at your gym, MG, which is perfect because all the stock is already there. So it's an athlete check-in.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a big space. There'll be a zillion car parks.
Yeah.
Bathrooms. I've even got, I think I said on last week's potty, I've even got like an NBA stage taped out on my rubber gym floor. So anyone who wants to have a little play while they're waiting can have a little practice pose.
People can probably do some cardio while there if they want to. They could probably get some dumbbells out and do.
Or they can come upstairs and help us sort NBA stuff. There's plenty of that to be done.
Yeah,
but that'll be good. It'll be nice to do a check-in at the home turf, and a lot of people that maybe listen to this or are competing would not have been to my gym, so it'll be nice to have everybody down there and
be awesome.
Check it all out.
And the tanning will be done there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of space for it, which is good.
Perfect space.
And open the 2 roller doors up. Although I did look at the weather for Friday and Saturday.
It's shit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I saw up to 30 mil of rain.
Oh, really?
And then 20 mil on show day.
Okay. Well, we're going to be inside. We'll be fine. Hopefully, yeah. People
I think the Saturday's worse than the Friday.
People just have to look after themselves when they're traveling.
Yeah,
and
just cover up.
Actually, no, it's Friday now, so it's going to be humid. It's going to be 26, and there's 20 mil of rain.
Okay.
It's going to be a real...
Like Queensland weather.
It's going to be a treat.
All right.
Roller doors.
Do you want to get stuck into some questions? Please. All right, let's start. I'm literally just going to go in kind of in order that they kind of came in. Let's start with the training one. How do you incorporate unilateral exercises in your clients' programs? Maybe MG, do you want to start? Unilaterals?
Yeah. So if I just think about like lower body to start, I do love a lot of unilateral movements. I'm also very, very mindful of the time that unilateral movements can take.
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, if you look at, say, one of my current programs, be it male or female, you'll notice that, say, if I've got a lower day, I probably don't have 3 unilateral movements. Probably I'll max it at 2. So, you know, it might be like a Smith machine Bulgarian and maybe a single leg extension. I wouldn't also put a single leg press that day and a walking lunge.
It takes ages. Yeah.
It's also, it's not only a time thing, but it's kind of hard to get really geared up for like lots of single leg work as well.
Yeah.
So typically I'll program it to a maximum of 2, and pretty similar with upper body as well. But you know, the overriding factor of all of that is it's also dependent on what the athlete needs based on where their physique is currently at and things that we're, you know, hoping to bring up or improve. But I'm always using unilateral movements.
Yeah,
like pretty rare you'll find a block that just doesn't have any unilateral movements. I think they're a great tool. I think, you know, for me, one of my favorite movement patterns where, you know, personally I feel super challenged in it, but I always get great reward for effort is a single leg press. You know, I can get a better range of motion for myself. I can really test myself on that sort of movement. So I look forward to a lot of the single leg movements. I know a lot of people stay away from them as well, and it's typically because this is what I found from just coaching athletes over the years is they are more challenging, and for a lot of people you're never going to be able to lift the same load on a single leg or a single arm, and a lot of people don't like that they can't lift as much, so they tend not to do them, when in reality doing more of them would probably help you bring up all of your double leg or double arm movements a lot faster. And a lot of people have, you know, so many tilts and imbalances and things that are created over years of, you know, living their day-to-day life that they don't even realize all of a sudden they're starting to, you know, develop these compensations with muscle groups, and, you know, before you know it, you've got, you know, a symmetry issue. So they're a great tool to use.
Would you say that you do more unilaterals with females over males just because the way that females have to train their glutes a little bit more, and the only way to really do that is through multiple unilaterals? For
sure. And it's like if you think about, you know, what is important for a men's physique guy or a classic guy, and you think about just chest alone, there's not a lot of, there are movements, but I certainly I'm not programming them a lot of single arm chest work, for example. I do a lot of single arm shoulder work.
Yeah.
But yeah, for that reason, absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Scotty?
Yeah, I definitely think they have a place. I think when you have athletes that potentially have, you know, asymmetries, whether it be, you know, from an aesthetic perspective, but also from a strength perspective, sometimes as physique athletes, we can get lost in just wanting to move the load from A to B as opposed to the way in which you move it, which, you know, addressing those asymmetries can sometimes allow you to then make better progression. Not sometimes, but often not, you'll make better progression aesthetically. But it's one of those things where you're just managing, as MG said, that stimulus to fatigue ratio, and also knowing where you're going to put them. You're not going to have a whole session based on that. And then there's also the element of time.
Yep.
But most sessions, majority of my athletes, especially for lower body, there'd be at least one, sometimes two. One usually that's focused on a quad-based movement, or maybe one that's more hamstring-based, as well as a bilateral. But yeah, I think they're definitely an important piece to integrate in, and it's also a way of making an exercise harder without having to place crazy amounts of load on connective tissue, which as you get older you start to pay more attention to things like that.
Yep.
Your recovery and whatnot. So
I'd even say that for targeting specific muscle groups, especially if I'm talking about the glutes for females, you actually can't train them efficiently without doing unilateral movement. So if you think about like the upper glute portion, you got to do some kind of hip abduction or standing hip abduction. You got to stand on one leg and train the other leg while etc. Unless obviously seated, you can use the machine, but from a standing perspective, you can't really do it any other way unless it's unilateral. Any kind of kickback obviously is unilateral. Even any step down, step up, lunge pattern where you want to train that kind of lower glute region, it's got to be a unilateral movement most of the time. So you kind of have to have them in your program. Now, from an upper body perspective, you might argue you could do without them. You could probably train every muscle in the upper body without having to do a unilateral, but there's obviously, like if you're thinking about like lower lats and things like that, sometimes it's best to kind of get that kind of row position where you can really focus on that lower lat region. And only sometimes you can't do that with a bilateral movement, or maybe you don't get the same effect. That kind of makes sense. But also too, from an imbalance perspective, strength or musculature, you're going to need some of that in your programming at least.
And even the single arm, like the lateral raise, and that's one that I use all the time. The advantage to be able to go across your body to get more of a lengthened position using cables. Again, all of these things are just tools in your toolbox. If you talk about glutes, it's about hitting it from every angle to ensure that you're bulletproof from where you've come from. And usually, if you're strong across multiple different planes, it'll allow you over bigger compound movements. So all of your squats, all of your hinges will be better as a result of it. Similar, with your pressing based movement. So if you're on a machine, there's always an element where you can overcompensate from one side. You might be right-handed, you bias that side a lot easier versus, and that's why if you're using, even if it's an isolateral pull down or an isolateral press, you've got, like say a hammer strength one, but you've got options to use both of them independently. That's always going to be beneficial. And more often than not, you'll see people on their last rep, if they've got one in reserve, there'll be one arm that's stronger than the other. And so the goal is to try and bring them closer together, because most people have asymmetries in their physique as well.
Yeah. Even for me, like for instance, for biceps, for curls, I do them unilaterally because just the way my shoulder feels, if I try to lock in and hold a stiff bar or something like that, I get a niggle in the shoulder, so or in the forearm, as you know, or in the tendon. So I decide to do all my bicep movements unilaterally because I can just put the arm in the position it needs to be so that it feels comfortable and I can train that muscle. But I know we spoke when we did a training session recently about pec fly and doing one arm at a time, because you can kind of position yourself in the machine to cross over the body.
Yeah.
Where you can't do that if you're doing two arms at the same time, because you're just going to bang into each other in the middle. So there's also things that you can only do to train that muscle efficiently by doing a unilateral movement.
Yeah, and if you think about the role of that movement, I mean, like say the pec to adduct, to come in toward the midline of the torso, most fly machines, you're going to stop there versus if I want to do this now, I can go further across straight away. Now I feel a real big squeeze in that short position. So all of those things, again, they're tools in the toolbox.
Yep.
The other place, which is pretty relevant to me at the moment, is like my leg days are pretty much all single leg. Not because, I'm being a hypocrite, I said I wouldn't do it, but for me, just coming out of a knee injury, if I do double leg anything, the compensation's insane. Like I'll do a lying hamstring curl with two legs, and I will come up and literally just all the blood will be right.
Okay.
So I have to do it single leg. And like I'll get through, a working set at a very similar weight as I was before, but I'll only feel it in one.
Yeah.
So
I'd even sometimes program like single leg press at the back end of a prep, because I know that the load's going to be less, so the fatigue's going to be less. So instead of them loading up the leg press with hundreds of kilos of weights, they could put on maybe half that or even less and still get the same stimulus, but not having to push so much load at the back end of prep.
I have majority of, I don't think maybe one or two that are in a heavy strength phase, but majority of mine, I'll never run leg presses that first compound. And as you guys know, I'm very big even on squat-based movements of using a leg extension first as a potentiation, but also a little bit of pre-fatiguing. And I love that personally because you've got really, really good blood flow to that area already, but also it means that by accumulating a little bit of peripheral fatigue, not systemic because it's not a challenging exercise on the central nervous system, but then when you go to do a bigger, say a squat or something like that, you can make the exercise so much harder without needing crazy huge amounts of load. And so again, you're getting a maximum return. It's so much more friendly on connective tissue, as well as systemic fatigue, which in prep is huge.
Huge.
Well, I couldn't even imagine squatting or leg pressing without doing a leg extension first.
Yeah.
Well, when you first, like, you think about, like, first thing that you kind of learn when you do exercise prescription in your first year of sports science undergrad, one of the first things you're taught is the bigger muscles come first, which makes sense. And in a sporting setting, when you're training an athlete, for sure, bigger before smaller. But when you're talking about hypertrophy and trying to grow the muscle and also manage recovery and whatnot, because let's be honest, most athletes are not doing 25 sets of a specific muscle group per week. They're doing a lot less, and it's usually just push-pull legs and that's it, or upper lower. So you have to sort of let go of that, and obviously there's a place for that, but you need to be mindful the purpose of this session is to stimulate the muscle, but also we want to place a certain amount of volume that we can recover from, because at the end of the day, if you're doing huge amounts of intensity and volume and then you're fucked for 5 or 6 days, you can't recover from it. It's your body's way of saying that ceiling, you're just smashing through it, way too hard. And so there's not enough time to relay a new level of homeostasis. And so you need to be mindful that being crazy sore is not necessarily a good thing.
All right, let's move on. This is nutrition related. What are the negatives of having higher fats and lower carbs if the calories are still the same? Maybe you want to talk about this, Scotty, a little bit about fuel.
So it was
higher fats, lower carbs
under isocaloric conditions.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking about resistance training, carbohydrate is your body's preferred substrate, in terms of, yielding ATP, which is the energy currency of a cell. That's what we use when I'm moving my hands, when I'm doing a bicep curl, I'm using ATP to be able to facilitate that energetic task. And so when you're consuming carbohydrate, it's a lot quicker to break that down to produce ATP. And when we're performing training sessions in the gym, that is the substrate that we want to use, versus if you're having a high fat diet. Not saying that you can't yield energy for it, but it's not as efficient in terms of using it there and then. If I have a massive avocado and then I want to go and hit a big push session, versus if I have 100 grams worth of cream of rice flour, I know that's going to, the cream of rice is going to get into the bloodstream a lot quicker, and therefore, it's going to allow me to utilize that and to produce ATP, thus to use the energy. So the other side of that is, if we're talking about having a high fat diet as well as having some carbohydrate, just from a digestion perspective, anytime you're consuming, foods that are high in fat or in fiber for that matter, you are going to delay gastric emptying, which means that it takes a lot longer for the food to go, the transit time from the stomach into the small intestine, where you're actually going to absorb and utilize those nutrients to then get across the membrane into the blood. So they're things that we want to be mindful of. I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of female coaches these days, I see a lot on social media saying, if you're a girl and your fats aren't above 50, your coach doesn't know what they're doing. When we know that, like, yes, fats are important for cellular function, they're important for our health and well-being. We understand that. But when you're dieting, at the end of the day, energy balance is what's going to govern, sex hormone production. Not, I'm eating 1,000 calories, but they're all from fat. So, from an endocrinological perspective, I'm going to be absolutely sweet.
You're still fucked.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. So, whereas I have lots of females that I prep that their fats will be in that 30 range. If they're on like 1,200 calories, not going to give them 50 grams of fat. When they're training, again, we just spoke about the importance of carbohydrate. That is what is going to drive them. And obviously protein, we want to give them ideally at least 2 grams per kilogram of body weight to make sure that, we're not losing tissue. So I think if you're an athlete, carbohydrate is the number one substrate, that as well as protein, but carbohydrate in terms of facilitating the training demands, carbohydrate is king.
Actually, I want to go over to another question there that was very, very similar. I'll just find it. Here it is down here. What are your thoughts on coaches putting female clients on low calories and high cardio output almost 6 months out? 1,200 calories, 24 weeks out, 1,000 calories, 20 weeks out, 5 by 45 cardio sessions, 5 resistance training sessions. So I know like the back end of prep, we might see those kind of numbers,
Mhm.
5 cardio sessions at 45 minutes each and being on 1,200 calories or even 1,000 calories potentially towards the back end if someone really needs to dig. Remember too, is we've got to realize that some people are just small, like they weigh 45 kilos or they weigh 50 kilos. They're not going to have a lot of calories, right? They're a small person.
Yeah.
But that far out, 24 weeks, 6 months out, to be already starting at that point is, I would say, probably not a really good position to be in because there's not really much to take from after that point to make it all the way there, especially if you're starting off in a composition that is the typical improvement season composition, starter prep composition. You're not going to be stage lean at that point.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to go.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I think it just depends on, again, your starting position, how much you need to lose. Like, what are this person that is on 1,200 calories and these cardio sessions, like, where are their biomarkers at? Is their energy good and are their hunger levels low? Well, then, maybe it's not as bad as it might be for somebody who's starting and all their biomarkers are already in the shit. So that would be something that I would be looking at as well. But I mean, ultimately, everyone is so different. Like, if that person in their off season at 1,680 calories was, had been on that for years and was, putting gradual weight on and their energy levels were good and they just don't like to eat a lot of food and have never eaten a lot of food, it's a different conversation to somebody who is starting prep and, never got the opportunity to be in a calorie surplus and, was at a different composition to that sort of person. So it's really, really hard to comment without having, all the details. But ultimately, would you like to start in a much better position than that? Sure, you probably would. You'd love to start with everyone eating 3,000 calories and doing just 3,000 steps a day. And there are some people that get to do that. But again, everybody's different. So without really understanding the athlete, it's probably hard to comment on it properly.
I also think those numbers are arbitrary numbers. They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like you could say, for example, my low days at the back end of prep are going to be somewhere in the range of 2,300, 2,400. I've got some of my fitness guys now that are in prep for season C that are digging and they're on high 1,700s, but they're also sub 70 kilograms. They're not, weighing what I'm weighing. So it's all relative. And equally, even if I was dieting on 1,100 calories, it does not matter. What does it matter? Everyone physiologically is going to be different. The way that everyone responds from a metabolic perspective is going to be different. And everyone's day to day is different. Some people, like if you've got a tradie and he's in prep, he probably burns 5 times the amount of energy that we do. So he can get away with having to eat more. But I guarantee you, when you're inside out, and I had this conversation with an athlete yesterday in their check-in, it doesn't matter how much you're eating when you're truly conditioned. Every day still sucks. Every day is still hard. Training sessions are hard and you're still hungry. So whether you're hungry on 3,000, maybe psychologically there's a benefit because you know that you're eating that. But for me, even in the improvement season, people are like, oh, I'm eating 5,500. Who cares? Like for me, you want to eat the amount of food that allows you to gradually progress to gain weight. As long as all your markers and that are fine, then everything else is really irrelevant. But I would also wonder, when I hear those numbers, I'm like, I bet you that person's not adherent. Because if you're eating that much and you're doing 5 days worth of cardio, I don't know too many people that if I was to just go and grab someone who's over in the bakery now and she's just picking up her family scroll and she's going to tuck into that for afternoon tea, which is fine. But I guarantee you, if I said to her, I want you to come and I want to run a study with you and I want to compare people that go into bakeries on Wednesday afternoons to get scrolls, if you follow a meal plan that I give you, and I want you to do 5 days worth of cardio and resistance train, sleep 7 hours just for a week, and I want to see how you respond. And I guarantee you, like, I would be confident to say that at least 90 to 95% would see a really good result. So I then wonder, is this individual and are they also flexibly dieting versus... And you've even seen that with your athletes, like you've crossed over with your approach to now, you're like, want them to follow a meal plan early on and straight away out of the gates. You see a really, really
They're all on target, maybe ahead. Yeah. But equally, like, is that, I wonder, is that person getting a great result too? Like, if they're getting on target 1.25% every week, 4 weeks in a row, and that's what they're doing, is that necessarily a bad thing either? It's like,
they might only be losing, say this person's 50 kilos, right? And say that, they're only losing 250 grams. I lost 230 grams this week. And this is the thing. Sometimes when we look at averages, people look at and my athletes do this all the time. They're like, oh, only a mini cup. My average is only 400 grams down. And I'm like, I'm not really paying attention to your average. I'm looking at your last 2 to 3 weigh-ins.
Yeah.
So it's like last 3, you had 58.8, 58.7, and then 58.8. And then the last 3 this week, we've had 58, 58.1, 58.2. But because you've had 58.7, 58.7, 58.6, 58.5, and then they came,
The average.
your average is only X amount. But if you look relative to where you were in those last...
You're going beautifully.
Yeah, there's a 1.5 or 1.2%.
Yeah, going beautifully.
So you have to be able to understand that. And also that comes down to your coach being able to identify and unpack that. And also, is your coach giving you direction when you do your cardio? Are they just like 45 minutes of cardio? What does that even mean? What's the intensity? What's the heart rate goal? What's the expenditure? And what's your training program like? Is it just 3 sets of 10 to 12 off trainer eyes, whatever the outcome?
Yeah, so, you could argue, imagine this person is a very small individual.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they test out beds and couches all day, and they just lie down and do absolutely nothing.
And they watch a lot of Netflix.
And they watch a lot of Netflix.
For sure.
And they aren't adherent to their diet, or they're not tracking it properly. And their cardio sessions are just...
They suck.
They suck, and also their training sessions. So yeah, maybe 1,200 calories is all right.
And maybe they flexibly diet and they eat different foods each day, which causes changes in transit time, digestion, bowel movement.
And they only have to lose 5 kilos for the show.
Yeah, we just picked the fuck out of that. And now I can't get to go for a fucking scroll like this because I'm going to worry if he's looking at me out the window.
Everything.
All right, let's move on. 5 weeks out and I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough and it feels too easy. No cardio, no calories are still high. Previously competed in fitness, but doing bikini this year, so don't have to be as conditioned as I was in the past. Should I be pushing conditioning harder if I feel I have a little bit more left in the tank? So 5 weeks out, feels like they're not doing enough. No cardio, calories are still high. Don't need to get as lean as what they did last time. Should they push a little bit harder if they've got stuff?
But then how lean are they?
Yeah, that's right.
Photos.
Yeah, that's in photos.
Who knows? And then last time you were on stage in fitness, were you truly conditioned, or were you the feedback was lose another 3 or 4 kilos?
Yeah.
Which is where most athletes come in. It's very rare that, like, after a show when you'll have athletes will be like, oh, how do you reckon I looked? Like, you look great. And they're like, oh, do you reckon I'm lean enough? And it's always like, I reckon you can probably just keep digging. Because it's you're not, of course you're not. And it's very rare that you're going to, like, in this day and age, and there's usually only 1 or 2, but even at a national show, they're at that top level, and they're usually the ones that are battling for a card. And if everyone was in shape, like, to the standard that ideally you want to be in, then there'd be 20 overalls given, within every division, but it doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah. Look, I know I've got some fitness athletes that could look like a bikini competitor without dieting that much.
They probably look the same level in their, sometimes even in their improvement season.
Correct.
Because, like, the extremes are so different.
Different, yeah. And also, too, it depends what federation. Like, if you're doing, and this is no shade, if you're doing something like an ICN bikini, it's not as lean as an NBA bikini or an IFBB bikini. So I don't know what bikini this is.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be one that requires a level of conditioning. So,
yeah,
but it's great if you feel like it's pretty easy and you're hitting all your markers and you're where you need to be. Happy days.
And if your coach also is content with your level, because at the end of the day, you put your trust in them, and if they're like, yep, I'm happy with where you're at, then I guess you're there. And physiologically, you should be intact as a bikini. Again, there's levels to that in the sense that, again, if we use, say, Ash, who is really, really conditioned, she's not going to be able to walk into most bikini lineups because she's going to be too lean, too hard. But she probably does. She's, experienced oligomenorrhea. She has disruptions to her menstrual cycle. She's probably food focused. She's tired. She's grumpy.
Yeah.
And they're all normal prep-related perturbations that you would expect with someone who's really, really lean. But if you look at someone who's, maybe more so closer to, let's say, like you said, say an ICN bikini, they're probably able to get by without having to experience that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Whilst we're talking about bikini, the next one was runner-up at Queensland NBA Bikini, ended up getting the Queensland IFBB Fit Model overall. Does that make sense? So is NBA Bikini more aligned to Fit Model than Bikini and IFBB? It's a great question. The thing is that you have to look at who's there on the day.
She was awesome, by the way.
She was great. Yeah, she was great.
I remember. I was like, she's lethal.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's the one that won bikini, came second in bikini.
One that came second to Kiralee looked wicked as well.
Yeah.
But for me, you could have gone either way.
Yeah.
I thought the girl that came second.
Because she
was
came second in NBA bikini and then won fit model overall, doesn't mean that they are aligned. You got to think of who's
there that day.
Who was there that day, but also think of the top best competitor in that division compared to the top best competitor in the other division. You'll see they aren't aligned.
And an example of that would be, say, Amanda, right?
Yeah,
Who's our
exactly.
top bikini pro. Yep.
But she can easily walk into an IFBB bikini lineup, like
100%. But not fit model. She'd be too lean, too big, etc.
But I'm saying she's lethal in our version of bikini, and that's why she's the champ. But also, she would not look out of place in an IFBB bikini.
Yeah, she did well. She did well.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like
So whenever you look at shows and show results, and you're trying to say, oh, okay, well, it looks like they're going for that look, or it looks like they're going for that look, or it's aligned to that federation. Think about the best of the best in each category. That's how you know what's aligned and what's not aligned. Sometimes your placing is based on who shows up on the day and who's the closest to the criteria.
The look they want. That's right.
In your opinion, what is the best category for females with small clavicle width? So small shoulders. What do you think?
It's a hard one because there's so many other things that go into the physique. It's not just like looking at a clavicle. I mean, in theory, if you've got a wider clavicle and you can fill that clavicle with more muscle, then you're more suited to a bigger muscular category like fitness or sports. But if you've got a small clavicle and you've got a tiny waist and your glutes match your clavicle or the muscles on your clavicle,
correct,
you could still do bikini too. So
I think it's more about your shape.
It's more about your shape. And also, can you fill that clavicle out?
Yeah, your shape, your proportions, and your symmetry, other than are you the widest person or are you the narrowest person?
Especially for the female categories.
Yeah, of course.
Being more so important, your shape, than say the men's categories. So
the person with the widest clavicles doesn't win.
Exactly. You've got to fill it. I mean, I got wide clavicles. There's nothing on them. That's what I mean. I'm going to do.
Yeah, I don't ever think I've looked at someone's biacromial breadth, which is the distance between the two chromium processes.
Please say that again. Please, just one more time.
The what?
What did you call it? The
biacromial, as in biacromial, breadth. So BREAD, breadth. So if you're taking
breadth,
so when you do your Isaac, your skin fold testing, you learn about taking breath. So I've got the tool in there. I could show you.
Start pinching him.
I'll get it out now. Get it out now. Go. Let's go.
Measuring like the distance between two specific landmarks. So like if it was the leg on the lateral and the medial epicondyle.
It's a girth measurement.
Yeah, so you're measuring the distance between. So the biacromial breadth.
Everyone
biacromial
the girth.
The distance between the two.
They look like big arms, like the arms that you get like in those
pinches.
The pinches.
Yeah, please.
Just go get it.
Please.
I'm thinking the ones where you go on the machine and it picks up the stuff out of the toys.
It's like a claw machine.
I call it a claw machine. Yeah, it's like a claw machine, but just the two pinching arms.
I think anyone that's listened to this podcast long enough knows how addicted I am to claw machine. Me and I love a claw machine, man.
Here it comes. So this is the benefit if you're actually watching this.
Mention girth. Scott pulls out his girth kit. Here we go. Pulls out a breadth.
Okay, it's like a vernier.
This is old school. Yeah,
like verniers.
Yeah. So if you were going to take someone's measurement like that, so
I can only imagine Maddie Hatton at this point listening to this episode.
So you would pick the widest point, so the greatest protuberance.
Yeah. Okay.
You like that?
Yeah, protuberance.
Yeah. So like that, and then you would take the reading, and then there you go.
That's a cool little tool. Yeah, it's like a vernier. You use it.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about somebody's clavicle. So you're saying from here to here.
I'm talking about
you couldn't measure with that tool.
Not with that one. So you're talking. You would use a.
But you can measure your joint sizes.
I'm curious with my knees and how rooted they are. I'm just very curious for 1 second. This is quite interesting.
Something fell.
I thought I heard something before.
Yeah, it did. It was the grey cat. But let's continue with this dodgy knee and see the difference here. This is interesting.
I swear I heard. Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it fall. That's right. We'll grab it later, Scotty.
Okay.
No stress. Okay, cool. We covered that question.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so typically if you're taking someone's anthropometric measurements, this is the piece that you want to use.
It's a measuring tape, yeah.
But it's a special measuring tape.
Is it? What's special about it?
If you look at most measuring tapes, they're going to be flimsy versus feel how sturdy that is. So if I wanted to so if I was going to get you to supinate your palm like that, and I was going to take an unflexed reading on that, all the way around, and so it stays nice and erect versus it's loose and it's flimsy.
Okay.
So if you guys ever go and do your Isaac course, every presenter will like spend 10 minutes talking about how. Because when I was there, I was like, man, the tape's a fucking tape. What does it matter? But they're like real.
MG is just measuring every part of his body now.
I'm just curious.
I've never seen that breadth taken before, but do you know what? Let it rip, son.
For me, it's just these knee injuries. I'm just curious as to how much.
Yeah, so
like the episode. Keep going.
If you were measuring both of yours, you would literally be
Here we
like,
go. This is a
I
really
do.
so
This is
you would palpate.
Oh,
To
Is
find
that because he's on his knee?
Yeah.
He was like
do.
proposing.
and he's palpating me.
He's probably
and then you would compare on the other side.
So the knees are the same.
this is live measuring of MG's knees at the moment.
Yeah, see this one's smaller.
Is that your injured one? The
Absolutely.
injured one is smaller. Okay. The joint is smaller. You measured the
It's
joint.
the distance between the two epicondyles.
Should be small.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Next.
So yeah, everyone's anthropometry is going to be different.
But it shouldn't matter.
No, because it's like
From a
if you,
competing perspective.
yeah, if you're a bikini and you're like, oh, I don't have wide shoulders.
Yeah.
Then you just try and blow up your lats and try and blow up your delts and make your glutes look really big, so you can still
Have that extra.
And to give that a bit more merit, like look at Ash for example. At 42 kilos this morning,
Mhm.
she doesn't need to have the biggest clavicles to make that physique look
No, because
perfectly.
she's got zero waist.
Exactly. So as long as it's balanced, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like Phil Heath, 7-time Mr. Olympia, he had small clavicles, and that was one of his downfalls. Well, the things that they kept saying about him, but he won 7 times and dominated.
He also
the
had gigantic fucking shoulders.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call somebody out on stage this weekend. And next, welcome to the stage with the biggest clavicles in the world.
Okay, next one. Do NBA state winners have an incentive to compete at nationals? Yeah, $250 travel incentive and you get that in your
And
email.
the opportunity to see Scott Morrell twice.
Yeah, and yes.
Worth more than $250 on its own. And have your clavicles measured by Scott at nationals.
Yes. You bring your
Will you bring that?
Bring your gadget.
Bring my breadth tool.
Yeah. How many overalls have you three won as a group? I don't even know.
No idea.
As in coaches or
As in the three of us collectively?
As in competing or as in coaching?
Coaching.
I guess it's coaching, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't even know.
Oh, no clue.
I haven't even counted. Okay, let's go over this. So, does the way you breathe matter for weightlifting? I've been told 2 different ways. Breathe in, brace, hold your breath, perform the rep, breathe out. Or breathe out, expand the belly in the easiest part of the exercise. Breathe in, lifting pelvic floor, brace the hardest part of the exercise.
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the individual.
So, I think a really good way as a good example exercise would be like a deadlift or an RDL, is you can breathe in and still push your belly into your belt.
Yeah.
So,
but would you say that you are holding your breath during the rep?
On the eccentric, I absolutely am. There's no way for me. I'm coming down on that downward phase going.
Is there any, for most exercises that require core stability, so not like a bicep curl or something,
but if we're talking about a hinge pattern or an axial loading pattern,
something that even bent over row, even a row, seated cable row,
and then
something like that.
Compare it to a hack squat.
Would you say that you are holding your breath during the rep?
Yeah. So if you're if I'm wanting to maintain core stability or thoracic extension, I'm going to engage in intra-abdominal pressure. So when I'm not necessarily trying to breathe through my lungs, I'm trying to breathe into my diaphragm to brace. So if I'm letting go on that, and then as I'm concentrically contracting, I'm going to exhale and then pull, and then I'll usually take a breath, because I try and especially with my bigger compounds, I teach my athletes to take their breath at the top and to learn to be able to hold tension and to be able to brace eccentrically, because so many people if you talk about a deadlift, for example, I was talking with Lusty about this the other night, and most people when they deadlift, they'll literally rip the hips through and then bang, the bar just rips them back down.
And they're breathing out at the same time, just letting the whole body go limp.
And then they'll reset on the bottom. But the problem with that is, firstly, and this is a pet peeve I have with people and even physique athletes who are just missing a big piece of the pie on a deadlift, you're losing the entire eccentric portion of the lift where you can get an abundance of tension isometrically versus, so for example, if I look out at the top, I'll literally take my breath, lock my lats, and then I'm hinging, holding that position there. By doing that, you're lowering yourself and you're already in the most advantageous position to commence the next rep. And you've already got an abundance of mechanical tension. As soon as I reset on the bottom, I'm inviting slack back in. Now, if you're trying to get stronger, for sure, resetting on the bottom, because it requires more muscular strength, more force production. But if I'm talking about being able to perform 8 reps of, say, a stiff leg deadlift, I'm not resetting on the bottom if I want to be able to get 100. Exactly. I'm going to reset at the top. But to do that, you need to have that endurance, and that definitely takes time. But even from an injury prevention perspective, and this is why so many CrossFitters break down, because you look at them during the eccentric phase, it just fucking throws them all the way through the movement. And so you lose that position, but you also lose that golden opportunity to create that isometric strength. And that's why I believe anecdotally that I've seen time and time again, you look at people that have ridiculous rear double bicep shots, their deadlift is very, very strong, and they're really, really clean in how they facilitate it, and they're strong eccentrically on the way down.
Okay, so we spoke about breath.
Mm-hmm.
What about the motion of bracing? Because I know they've kind of mentioned that bit about the pelvic and all that kind of stuff. So what's your go-to cue to brace?
So you should be bracing on the way down rather than let's say that you're on a hack squat like that, you can probably afford to, as you're going down, you can probably get, because if you're taking a 2-second negative, you can probably take a breath about halfway down and then
as
brace.
You're going down, yeah.
But for me, I don't know why would you just not reset at the top? So that, because if you've already braced as you commence your descent or the eccentric portion of the lift, then when you get to that bottom position, you're already creating tension, you have intra-abdominal pressure, you're fine. And then as you're facilitating the concentric portion, exhale, and then you could potentially even breathe in as you're getting closer to that lockout portion. But you should have the endurance to be able to, let's say that each rep is, say that it's 4 seconds, right? Let's say that you've got a 2-second negative, there's a half a second hold on the bottom, and then there's a really, quick, rapid 1 centric up, half a second reset at the top.
4 seconds.
4 seconds.
Yeah.
So there should be no reason, same if I'm going here. So if it's I'm a one arm single row, 1,000, 2,000, and then exhale, drive and squeeze, half a second, bang, go again.
Yeah.
So I think it applies across the board. But if you have the ability to be able to chop and change, and it doesn't affect your positioning, and it doesn't affect your doesn't affect your positioning when you're in the most vulnerable position. Then have at it.
I think more so what I was trying to get at is, what do you cue someone on how to brace properly? Not the breath. I mean, so you're at your top of your squat or your top of your RDL. What do you tell them to do? Do you tell them not breathe through their chest? So you
Breathe
tell
in
them
your belt.
But your belt or your belly, right? Do you tell them to push their pelvis up and their rib cage down? Like, that's kind of the cues I use. For myself, in my mind, I think that the midsection, the belly is like a barrel, right? And I want to squeeze it in, but I also want to push down on it and push up on it slightly. So I'm compressing the barrel so that I'm locking my pelvis in place. So I'm not just extending through my spine and pushing my bum back. Because it shouldn't be in that position, right? So I'm thinking pushing the pelvis up slightly. So I'm pushing the bottom of the barrel up and also the top of the barrel down. So my rib cage isn't just fully touching the sky, like extended.
So you're not fully elongating.
Yeah, so that's my kind of cue of how to brace my core. Do you have any cues on how to brace your core?
Keeping the ribs down is a good one, because even on, like, say it's a glute drive, a lot of people, you'll see them when they do that, they lift their chest as they go up, as opposed to you should try and keep the ribs down. And then I prefer the curl method. I think we were talking about this other day about keeping the pelvis posteriorly tilted because you feel less quads and you don't feel that lumbar spine. But those cues that you just gave a textbook, they're perfect. Okay, cool. And that's usually how you would be instructed if you're thinking, I guess, one layer deeper, if you will.
Yeah, okay, perfect. MG, anything on that? No. Teaching, bracing, breathing?
No, absolutely. I wanted to ask Scotty something that it's still in the same realm, but curious as to what is happening. So we know that, you come to the top, right? So let's just use a deadlift, for example. You drop, you're lifting a really big weight, you come up, you're almost at failure, right? You drop that weight down, and we know that someone's blood pressure can go, drop really low once that weight's released. So what's happening from a, say, a blood pressure perspective when somebody's in a set of, say, heavy stiff-legged deadlifts, and instead of dropping that weight where we know their blood pressure will then drop, sustains and maintains the load and actually comes down with control, has a gentle touch and comes back up? Are they seeing changes to their, say, blood pressure when they get back up at the top, or are they only seeing that big change in blood pressure when they release that weight totally at the end of the set?
I think it depends where you're tensing as well. If someone was to release the weight quickly, typically they're going to fall forward. And if you do anything really fast, where you fling your head forward like that, you can get that like kind of dizzy.
Which is why they have someone standing behind us, a deadlifter.
But usually it's because they're tensing that hard. And so, for example, like I know when I deadlift, there's times I've blacked out before, but also because I'm tensing and squeezing that hard, the byproduct is that you're pushing so hard that you get an increase in blood pressure in your face. And so I actually get like a rash under my eyes afterwards. And that's how I know that you've really, really tensed too hard and people can burst blood vessels. That's not an intentional thing. It's just a byproduct of you pushing really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, go.
I was going to say, I think the deadlift, you've got to distinguish which one you're doing. If
Yeah.
you're doing off the floor,
Well, say normal
if you're
deadlift,
doing- if
right?
you're doing-
If I'm resetting every rep for
Yeah,
an
so
8 rep
it's
set,
so
am I
really-
getting blood pressure down 8 times versus if I just did it with the way you would control it? Is it just happening once?
yeah, because off the floor, the rep starts off the floor,
It's dead.
whereas an RDL, the rep starts at the top.
Yeah. So do you want your blood pressure changing that many times in one set? Like,
But if you're SLDLing and you're not, it's not a touch and go, but it's a half a second break.
it's a
It's
stop,
not
yeah.
a complete reset.
it's a stop.
Yeah,
It's a stop.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've still got full tension on the bar.
It's only as soon as you let it out, you invite it back in.
Correct.
That's where you're going to see some changes, and you'll see that increase there.
Awesome. Okay, this one here. Love the potty, guys. Question for you guys was to put a competitor. Sorry, hang on. Let me start that one again. Question for you guys that was put to my other competitor over the week. As a federation, do you take note and look at other federations awarding their top 3? Do you behind the scenes assess competitors against your own criteria and where they would rank in comparison to your own judging? So I think that's what it's saying is, do we watch other shows, other federations, look at how they're placing people and assess how they would place in our federation, and from there, to be honest, I don't think we have the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably two answers to it.
Yeah.
As coaches, we probably do if we're there and we've got an athlete in that show and you can't help but make the comparison. But as a federation, definitely not.
No, and I don't know if this question is leading to, we know they're going to compete at our show. If that's the same 3 lineup, we would have placed it differently, and we're already judging before the show even starts. No, we don't do any of that stuff.
I don't even think we've ever had that conversation.
No, I don't.
Because it's irrelevant. Because they could look good then, but then what do they look like?
Yeah.
I've seen that all the time. See someone who looks good one week and they'll come to you the week after.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they look different in there.
Yeah, and if somebody's won an overall at a different fed 2 weeks
Doesn't mean
before, they'll be judged when they show up on our stage because there's so many things that, might be different. And, everybody deserves the right to just be judged when they present themselves to our judges. So,
last one. What things make you 3 happy that's not bodybuilding? What makes you happy, MG, that's not bodybuilding?
at the moment, that Wednesday morning duck park
Yeah, Natalia.
in Greensboro, it's the greatest place ever. I've actually now got to a point where I literally buy organic rolled oats for ducks and stash them because if Talia sees them, she wants to go to the duck park.
Oh, she knows that's for
She
the duck
knows
park.
that's for the ducks. To the point, if I'm making oats in the morning, she'll start quacking.
Oh, really?
She's associated oats with ducks now. But yeah, that time in the morning on a Wednesday when the sun's coming up and the ducks are just sitting around your feet, it's probably the greatest thing for me at the moment.
So you have Wednesdays off work, PTs, you don't do any...
No, I straight off the plate.
Straight
in. I'm there till 9 o'clock tonight. But Wednesday morning, Meave does her consulting work.
Okay.
So from the moment Talia wakes up until I arrive here to see you boys, that's daddy time.
Duck park. How about you?
There's actually another I took Evie with Jen, Evie and Harvey. They went to ride their bikes. We took them to it's like a trail park area in Diamond Creek, and there's a plethora of ducks. The first thing I saw, I was like, you'll froth
You would
this.
love it.
If you ever want to change the scenery, and they're so friendly, they're everywhere. Like you have to move them out of the way because they're on the footpath.
Yeah,
Ducks to your hike at 10, there's a nice little bench there. It's just a little bit further to drive, but if you ever want something changed, it's beautiful out there,
must
man.
be fun for the people who are hearing the things that are making us tick right now. We just love ducks on walkways.
Scotty, what makes you happy other than bodybuilding?
Just spending time with my family, my wife and kids. Anything, like I said, on the Monday night, I think it was, I took the kids out to ride their bike and watching them ride without training wheels. And
That was a good video, man.
just seeing,
That was a great video. Was that like they've been riding without wheels for ages, or was that recently? It just looks so exciting.
We took their training wheels off just before Christmas, and Evie's younger. She's only 4. She's just turned 4, and Harvey's about to turn 6. And so they were on their training wheels for ages, but when they first, because it took so long for them to pick it up, because they just needs continuity. Once they got it, they got it. But they had a period where they didn't do it because it was just 40 degrees every day. And so getting them back into it. And so then this is the last few weeks they've just been doing it a bit more, and now they're just really good. Evie's still a little bit. You got to watch her. Like she almost took out a fence on the Monday. Like I almost went through a fence to try and stop her from falling over. But watching them do it, and then her saying, "Look at me, Dad, I'm riding, Daddy, I'm riding."
Cute.
It's like
it's you can see the joy on their faces in that video. It's just...
And even the amount of times that I then watch that back, and it's just you don't realize like
it's to relive the joy.
All those little wins, or watching them learn, watching Harvey learn how to spell and write and read and things like that. That for me, they're just the real basic, simple things that bring me joy. What about you?
For me, similar. Family, spending time with family. Doing like my little hobby is obviously I like cars. I'm a car guy, so doing things with my car is awesome. Doing things around the house, gardening. I like gardening and my lawn and all that kind of stuff too. But yeah, spending time with family, friends. Friday night with the boys, catching up with them. So I like all those things. Yeah,
just some time to switch off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
It's nice to get out of the bodybuilding bubble.
Definitely. And I think also, and I've had a couple of conversations with competitors, that if they find that the grind is getting to them, in comp, especially between shows, is just think about all the things you do outside of bodybuilding. Just keep following the process, keep ticking the boxes, but don't hyper focus on it, because sometimes that can really affect your mental health as well. So find things outside of bodybuilding that also bring you happiness and enjoy as well.
For sure.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.